So one of the things that I really respect about the Liberal Vannin Party is it has those two words, Liberal and Vannin. And so I think that for me, that idea of liberalism is about decentralisation. It's about empowering people to live the lives that they want to lead in ways that are happy and healthy, in terms of having their freedom of speech, freedom of religion and so on. But also the second word, which is Vannin, which is about, the place, our community that we live in. And so one of the things that I think is really one of the challenges for liberalism in the UK and the US and elsewhere in our civilization is that various liberal parties have been very focused on those ideas of freedom and individuality, but they haven't paid sufficient notice to the communities that we live in. And so having happy, healthy communities, families that can thrive. And so to me, the Liberal Vannin is really about those two twin ideas, like freedom of speech, freedom of thought, but also an affection for the community that we live in.
Okay, LibVan's had two MHKs. Peter Caron, who founded the party, I think it was back in 2006. Kate Costain, as she is now. Is Michael Josem going to be aiming to be the third MHK? Are you going to stand next year?
That's a good question. I don't know tonight, to be honest. I get a lot of people asking me that. And on one level, I'm flattered. But on the second, on a deeper level, I think that I don't think there's any particular affection for Michael Josem in the community, but rather there is a thirst in the Isle of Man for someone who will keep the bastards honest, someone who will stand up for the people of the Isle of Man, and someone who will provide a bit of an institutional check and balance. And so, look, to be frank, I'm working for a little startup company. That's my focus. But look, I don't know. I get a lot of people ask me that question. I'm flattered, but it's I don't know.
What's your background in business?
So worked for PokerStars for many years. And a big part of that was about stopping people from cheating in online poker. Using my background in statistical analysis to detect misbehaviour and to hold people who try and cheat, who try and defraud others to account. And now more recently working for a little startup company here on the Isle of Man. There's only a couple of us working there, but we have a mission that is about helping workers get jobs on building sites. So the simple analogy, it's like we have an app for your phone, sort of like Uber, but for the construction industry. And so for especially in the UK, there's a lot of turnover and a lot of transaction costs in finding workers. And so we're on a mission that's about helping blue-collar workers get jobs on building sites.
You said that the government budget was, what did you call it, secretive?
Sneaky is my word.
Sneaky. How come the government's budget was sneaky?
So I think that the communication around the budget, has been fundamentally sneaky. And so, for example, an example of that is that the government trumpeted a surplus of just over £11 million, but they're also taking £45 million out of their reserves. So in our business, and little startup business, we have much more expenditure than revenue today, and we are taking money from our reserves. And in our business, we call it a deficit. In your personal life, if your household at home, if you have more expenditure than revenue, you call it a deficit. And so I think that what the government has done is used words in a way that is a little bit sneaky.
Do you think the Isle of Man is set fair financially then?
I think that's a good question. I think that in the long term, and if we look ahead, the remainder of this 21st century, I think that the foundation of the Isle of Man is strong as a happy place to live, and in not just financially, but also socially. Whereas I do have concerns in the short term because we have a government that is spending very generously, £125 million for the boats last year. It has a lot of red tape and regulatory challenges in the short term. And so I think that in the short term, there are some challenges, but I think in the long term, the foundations are solid. We have a happy, healthy community. And that's why I guess, as your listeners would know, Andy, I speak a little bit funny. I have an accent from abroad. And so I guess I've bet my life. I've moved here to the Isle of Man because I think that foundations are solid.
Whereabouts in Australia are you from?
Originally grew up in Melbourne and then lived in Sydney.
Victoria?
Yes.
And were you involved in politics in Australia?
After I served in the student union and led that for a couple of years at university, and then worked for a couple of members of parliament for a couple of years. And then while I was living out in the country, I played a little bit of online poker in my spare time. And so during that time, I became somewhat prominent in the online poker world, and then I did some statistical analysis that showed there was some cheating taking place at an online poker site, a bit of a dodgy online poker site based out of Costa Rica, and as a result of that, became somewhat prominent in the online poker world, and the founders of PokerStars contacted me, said, "Hey, you want to work in online poker?" And I was a bit surprised, and that brought me here to the Isle of Man.
Were you working? Was it the Liberal Party in Australia?
Yes. I worked for members. I was employed by the Parliament of Australia, working for members of Parliament who were Liberal.
And I'm trying to think, Liberal, of course, Liberals have been in power for a lot. Scott Morrison's a Liberal, isn't he? Tony Abbott was a Liberal.
Yes, yeah, they were all prime ministers well after I left, and I've been living here in the Isle of Man for 10 years, and so the phrase I use is Australian by birth and becoming Manx by choice.
So are you aiming to widen the base of Liberal Vani? Are you looking for members for Liberal Vani? What are you hoping to do politically?
Yeah, so I think the first job of the Liberal Vannin Party is about serving the people of the Isle of Man. And so
you can only serve if you're in power, though, can't you?
That's true. And so the Liberal Vannin is going to work bloody hard. It's going to work hard to earn the trust of the residents and the citizens of the Isle of Man. And if we are blessed by the people of the Isle of Man and trusted by them, then we'd certainly be keen to serve. But that's ultimately a decision for the people of the Isle of Man.
You've been involved. You were involved in the online gambling business for how long?
It's not 9 or 10 years.
Okay, the Isle of Man's come to rely on the online gambling business. And there are lots of arguments to and fro. Of course, years ago, back in the 60s, when the Isle of Man first had a casino, the bishop said that, it was a terribly sinful thing to do and we shouldn't be doing it. Lots of people think that gambling is morally a wrong thing to be involved in, but obviously it provides an awful lot of industry, jobs and money for the Isle of Man. Where do you stand on that?
I think that the online gambling industry can, and it is possible for it to be a safe, fun pastime for people, but we certainly need to be very, very careful that it is safe for everyone, because there are some people who take it too far, and so especially around issues of addiction, and that's an issue for many issues in our community. In that, for example, alcohol, for most people, they can manage that, and for online gambling, most people, they can manage it. And so I think it's really important that if online gaming is to be provided, then it should be safe, it should be fun, and so that's why I worked for many years in trying to stop people from cheating in online poker, because it's really important that if people are to take part, it should happen in a safe place. And so I think the Isle of Man's regulatory environment is really the gold standard globally, compared to relatively shonky jurisdictions like Malta or elsewhere.
We often hear, again, people having a go at the Isle of Man, but as you say, places like Malta, lots of other places do have online gambling servers and companies, don't they? Not as well regulated as the Isle of Man?
Yeah, I think that the Isle of Man is the gold standard. Not only is the physical infrastructure outstanding, but we also have the institutional infrastructure. We have an independent court system. We have an independent regulatory agency. We have a government that is independent of those operators. And so one of the things that, just to take an example, to compare it to Malta, which you raised there, in Malta you can only complain to the regulatory agency. They will only hear your complaint if they get permission from the operator themselves. Whereas here, the regulator is fully independent. It's employed government bureaucrats. It's and you can certainly disagree with their decisions from time to time, but certainly they are held in very high regard. And I think the people of the Isle of Man, value that. They value that integrity.
Michael Josem is chair of the Liberal Vannin Party. Of course, we don't have party politics. We have somebody once said there were 24 unguided missiles in the House of Keys. How do you feel? Do you think the Isle of Man will be better with party politics, or does the independent system suit you?
I think one of the things that's important for the Isle of Man is for there to be checks and balances on the operation of power. And so this idea of liberalism is about decentralising that, and that is about ensuring there are checks and balances. And so one of the things that I think is really important there is that you have alternative sources of institutional power, whether it be, in my view, we should have a democratically elected legislative council that is a check and a balance. In the UK, you have the example of opposition parties. You have a very, very thick and vibrant and sometimes ideologically driven public media conversation, and those institutions are important checks and balances to the exercise of power. And so I think the Isle of Man would benefit from those institutional checks. Hopefully Liberal Vannin can play a part in that, but that's ultimately up to the decision of the people of the Isle of Man.
How's the policy direction of Liberal Vannin at the moment? Is it where it always was, or is it moving?
So I think that as the people and the ideas in our community move, I think that the party should reflect that. I think it's important to remember that those institutions, whether it be political parties, but politicians and governments, should represent the views of the people. And so it's the Liberal Vannin's job to listen to its bosses, and its boss is the people of the Isle of Man.
How do you get on with Peter Karen?
Good man. Yeah, no, he's a wonderful Manxman. He's such a wonderful character and such a vibrant and active campaigner for so many good ideas in public life.
He once said to me he thought of himself as being the stone in everybody's shoe.
And that's what he should be, and that's the job of the Parliament. It's a job of the Parliament to hold the executive to account, and he's a damn fine man in standing up for that.
How do you get on with Kate Costain?
Yeah, good woman. I think that she is, similarly. I think highly of her and Laurie and those that parliamentary party is, they certainly challenge the executive, and that's the first job of the Parliament. The first job of Tynwald has got to be to hold the executive to account.